developed a course, and this is the pilot for that course, and so you're going to give students a stipend. Or you have money in here to send your students to conference so that they can present. This is where you list anything that is related to those participants, whether it's a stipend or their fees, tuition and fees, if they travel, if they get subsistence, which would be your per diem when they travel, and anything else. The other would be if you were sending them to a conference and there was a registration fee, or those kinds of things, okay? I think some places now you have to pay a poster fee. If you go and you present and you get in a poster, you have to pay for them to see your poster and judge it. A sign of the times.
What if you don't have those specifics for that and you put all of your travel costs just lumped together under travel for students?
If you've written in your proposal that you're going to send your students to conference, you need to have it budgeted that way. And they understand, everyone who reviews a budget understands that it's an estimate. Frequently, you know that in 2 years you want to send your teachers to XYZ conference, but you don't know where it's going to be in 2 years because it's someplace different every year. So you take your best guess. And you can move money, and you want to guess a little bit on the heavy side when you're talking about your travel. And your stipend and your tuition and fees, you ought to be able to come pretty close to. Your travel, you're making an estimate. You figure, what I tell people a lot of times is, if this is a conference that moves a great deal and it's not in the Midwest, then figure, look to see what it would cost for somebody to fly a round trip to one of the coasts. Use the per diem rate for a big city on one of the coasts. Because, again, you're guessing, you're estimating, and the reviewers understand that, but they're going to want to know where those estimates came from. They're going to want to know that it's 4 people, round trip airfare, so much is per diem, so much is lodging, so much is registration, and any other fees that are associated with that. Okay?
But if it's an investigator, then
That
it just
goes
goes
up
under
above
D,
in the travel.
right? And it doesn't have to be itemized like
Oh,
that.
it will in your budget justification.
Yeah.
The justification shows how you got at these numbers. It proves that you didn't just reach out and say, oh, I think I want $5,000 and maybe I'll go to DC. They want to know that you had a plan, that you had an idea of what you were going to do. They also recognize that you're estimating your travel as well. Even local travel. Let's say you have a project where you're sending students out to test plots, and they're going to have to travel in a university vehicle, and there's a cost for that, or they're going to have to travel on their own, or they're going to make a presentation in Kansas City, and we don't fly to Kansas City, so somebody drives. You have to show how you arrived at your estimate, the basis for it. They're not going to come back and say, you said it cost $522 to fly a round trip to Los Angeles, and actually it was $582, or it was $400 because you got a really good deal. They're not going to come back on that and say that to you. You will have the opportunity to rebudget those funds. We have the flexibility to not have to go back to the program officer of up to 10%. And if you're moving it within the same budget category, let's say you figured it out and you could send 2 more students. Generally, you can do that. Once in a while, there'll be a restriction, but generally, you'll be able to do that. You can move it around. It's not really cast in stone.
Okay.
They want to know that you put thought into it and that your budget fits what you said you were going to do. Okay? Any other questions? And the next thing is the other direct costs. That's your materials and supplies, your publication, your consulting, subcontracts, computer services, equipment or facility rental, any alterations or renovations, anything else, and you have to put in the box what it is that's not listed there, and then you total that. Then your total direct cost, your indirect cost rate, which you put the type, and ours is provisional. You put the percentage. On campus is 58%, off campus is 26%. You show the base, which for Lincoln University is the personnel cost. That's not the students, that's not your subcontractors.
consultant, that is people who are gonna get paid through the Lincoln University payroll system. Now, if it's a student that's working for you, not a student participant, but they're working for you, they're a student employee, that's different, a graduate student employee. They are then shown in that as well. And then you show who the cognizant federal agency is, and that is included at the end of the grant fact sheet. It tells you that DHHS is our cognizant agency, and it gives you the contract number and
The phone number, the POC name and phone number are included there. POC is point of contact. And then you total how much the funds that you're requesting. Item J, where it says fee, we don't have that. That's for business, for profit entities that sometimes apply for grants. They have a fee basis. The budget justification is then added as an attachment. And it will tell you what kind of file they want to see that in. That justification should explain how you arrived at all of your costs. If you say that you're gonna have $2,000 in publication costs, they're gonna wanna know what that is. Or you're gonna spend, I recently worked with somebody who's working on a capacity building grant, and they put $9,000 for reference material. You need to say about how many books you think that's gonna be, and if you know exactly which ones they are, you can say that. This person estimated that $9,000 would buy them, I think, 20 reference books. Evidently the area they're in, the references are very expensive. And so you need to be able to show how many books is that gonna be? How many hours is somebody being paid for, or a percent FTE? So that they can then look at the logic that you use to arrive at the budget. And you wanna make sure that you understand that well, because when they wanna negotiate a budget, they're gonna come back to you and say, we really like your project, but we don't, you asked for $300,000 and we've only got $250. Let's look at your budget and see what we can do. If you don't know how you arrived at those figures, you're gonna be in trouble when you get ready to do that.
As part of your budget justification, if you have a detailed spreadsheet, can you
Yes.
attach that with your budget justification, the narrative also?
You have to look at what the RFP says.
It says,
Usually, you can import that spreadsheet into a Word document, and if you, depending on how you, when I build a budget, I start from the justification, and I use formulas in my spreadsheet to add the cost of living increases and those kinds of things so that it totals across. And I do my justification right in my spreadsheet because it's easier for me. Like, I would put Mike Scott 0.25 FTE, and then I would show on the line below that his annual salary times 0.25 times, whatever the rest of the formula was, times one. His annual salary times 0.25 times 1.25 if he's the PI, and that would give me that figure.
But there's often fairly restrictive page limits
Yeah.
on those
Right.
attachments as well,
So
you
you
can
have
fit.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I got in the habit of doing my justification in my spreadsheet, because then I have it all together, and I don't have problems with the page restrictions that way. A lot of times NSF will limit you to 3 pages. If you got $1 million budget, that can be very, very difficult, but if you use a spreadsheet table of some kind, where you've got each year in a column, you're not having to repeat all your budget categories, that helps.
Well, that's what I was asking, because I have that plus a narrative which takes that table and puts it into a narrative, and I wondered if I'd be better off putting the spreadsheet on there than the narrative, because it's more upfront, they can see just everything.
Well, what you could do is combine the two.
Combine
That's
the
what
two.
I
I'll
want
have
to
to
do.
look at the page limitations, because I'm like,
Yeah. So that they're looking at, when they see $45,000, they know exactly where it came from. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you're counting on the reviewer to look at this page